Hi guys, and welcome to our reflective report for the Summer Entrepreneurship Programme. My name's Chris.
Hi, and I'm Will.
Hi, and together we run Missionly. So I'm actually really excited about this evening because I think this is the first time that we've actually got around to discussing how this summer's gone together, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the first time we've had to...
Actually had a night off.
Yeah, first chance we've had to really sit back and sort of look at the summer, look at the last few months, and actually reflect, which is, yeah, as you say, was something we haven't done too much over the summer.
So I guess tonight what we want to try and get across is what we've been up to, let you know what's been happening over the summer, a lot about the lessons we've learned, because we've definitely learned some lessons, and kind of let you know where we're going as well, and hopefully you find it interesting.
Maybe a couple of the insider jokes from over the course of the summer.
Yeah.
And really give you a taste of what we're about and hopefully where we're taking Missionly.
So I guess probably where we ought to start is actually what is Missionly, if you don't already know. Hopefully you already do. Missionly is a platform that connects young people and small businesses together through practical work-based placements. So essentially there's this huge problem in the UK at the moment where we've got all these really great skilled young people leaving education, leaving university, leaving college, with these great skills, but really lacking that kind of commercial experience that they need to get into the careers they want, to follow their dreams, all of those wonderful things. And at the same time, we've got all these small businesses who really need these skills, like to survive, to grow, to be successful. Small businesses such as ourselves, who really need access to these skills, but don't know where to go from and can't afford for freelancers and agencies. So our whole job is to try and connect the two together, really. Do you want to give an example of how we do that, I guess?
Yeah, well, basically it's the sort of system where any sort of business would post a job on the platform, so they'd attach a reward, which would be essentially cheap for them to give, that the student will still value. Obviously, that bridges the gap between a small business being able to pay a professional, not being able to pay a professional, and being able to offer what is cheap for them to give. So say for example a business would post a job, say for example a cafe may post a job to do with some social media, and a student who's got social media qualifications,
PR student, marketing student, anyone really.
An interest in social media for sure, would take that job and then from there be able to earn that reward. Maybe it's breakfast, maybe it's a few cups of coffee, and do that and gain experience and sort of really bridge that gap between the two parties. And to give you a taste of where we were at the start of the programme, we had the bare bones, we had the ideas, we had the business model, but we didn't even have. We had nothing that was tangible, nothing that would be able to recognise us as a real business.
We tried to go out there and prove it, but we hadn't got too far, and we knew roughly that we wanted to create an amazing website where the small business and students could come, but neither of us. I mean, you've got no coding experience. I've got very little. I will hardly call myself a coder, and so we definitely had a lot of work to do at the start of summer. And how did we start off? Can you remember?
Well, our priority was to set some goals for the summer. Obviously the first one of those, as you set out with any sort of business, is to be able to build the product and to build it to the best ability that we possibly can.
We really wanted to have something launched by now. That was the main goal, wasn't it? Because we spent so long talking about it, but until you actually get something out there in people's hands and they can use, it's very...
Exactly right. And as Chris just mentioned, we identified that we didn't have the skill set between us to be able to build the product to the standard that we wanted to. So our first real goal was to build a team and primarily find somebody or a couple of people that would be able to, a couple of developers that would be able to build this website to the standard that we wanted.
We went out and we were looking for this developer, and we posted a job out to UE, and we got...
It did well, didn't it? It got between 12 and 15 responses or so.
Yeah, and it was quite exciting. So this was the first time that anyone outside of us, we'd really kind of talked too much about the idea, and we were actually getting validation because people were taking the time to apply. And so we got this first email in, got all excited, God, who's it going to be? Is it going to be amazing? And looked through, and he looked awesome, didn't he? It was great, and so we thought we'd be clever and we'd background check people.
As you do with any web developer.
As you do, like when
expecting a web developer to have loads of content online, loads of stuff attached to their name, to be able to be really impressed and
look at
blown
websites
away.
that we've already done.
Yeah.
And so like we put his email address into Google, and the first thing that came up was that he was a drug dealer.
And dealt drugs under his own alias.
Yeah, wasn't even intelligent enough to use a different name. So we learned right from the start. Like after that, we were meticulous over every single person that applied, and we went through. We did proper background checks.
In that first round of recruiting, we maybe out of the 12 or maybe it was about 14 people that had applied for the job. We maybe interviewed eight or so.
Yeah, and it was quite interesting really because we were expecting some seriously great developers. And what was really surprising, actually, like we found out how hard it is to recruit someone who's good for a role. Like, because out of those 8 developers,
how many were under real consideration?
Yeah, I mean maybe 1 or 2, and they just didn't have the skills. I mean, actually, if anything, it was great again because it validated our idea. Like, there's all these people out there who have got, who are going out there trying to learn these trades, but just lacking the commercial experience. And it was surprising how long it took for us to find someone that we liked. I mean, it must have been a good 4 weeks of interviews. And in the end, we found a guy called Dennis, who's a bit of a character, but...
Yeah. So, we found a guy called Dennis who we liked, and he was far better than we ever hoped to get on board because his online presence was brilliant. His work was absolutely first grade. And we brought him on board, and at first it's been an interesting experience with him. It's been an interesting ride, but at first, integrating him into the team had its interesting moments, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think we definitely learned expectation setting and trying to be really transparent. Like at the start, we found it quite hard to, I guess, get across what we wanted from him and what he wanted from us, and it took us a few weeks to really, in the end we sat down and we went through it all, and it worked out really well. We were very open and transparent with what we wanted, him the same, and since then it's been pretty perfect, hasn't it? He's been working with us all summer, but those first few weeks we definitely learned a lot about how to deal with people in that sense.
Exactly right.
So, out of interest, if you had to say that you learned one thing from like our kind of whole recruitment process, what would it be? I'm intrigued.
Well, certainly to hire slow, Chris. Yeah. Definitely to hire slow, and as the old saying goes, hire slow, fire quick. Definitely to hire slow. Make sure that the person that we employ is really, really passionate about what they want to do and what they are doing. And also, the thing that really came across throughout the whole hiring process and after hiring is the management of people. I mean, because we had some problems about managing Dennis in the initial stages of Mission Lead. So what did you learn from that, would you say?
I think transparency, being very clear up front what's expected, because I mean that was our main issue, wasn't it? Like we had different ideas to what was expected as Dennis did, and I think part of that reason was we didn't draw up a clear and specific contract,
which is our own
soon enough. That was our fault, and I think if we'd have had that contract, then it would, whenever it came down to a discussion about who was doing what, it would have never been a personal thing. We'd have just always been able to relate back to that contract. And so definitely recruiting again, get a contract drawn up before we even put the job advert out, so it's very clear exactly what we need, who we want, what they're going to be doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that would be my bit of advice. So the next step, like kind of where we went from here, like we got Dennis on board, he started developing, and we thought, hey, great, you know what, now's the time that we should go out and speak to investors.
Yeah.
And we were like, yeah, we can go raise lots of seed funding, and we'll go talk to some VCs and angel investors, and everyone will love our product. And we thought that we had something really special, didn't we? And so, who was the first sort of investors? We went down to, was it Glastonbury? Yeah, we went down to Glastonbury, which was an experience in itself. And we sat down with these investors and we started telling them about our idea, and they loved it. Like, we were talking to them, we were like, wow, we're doing something really well. They like the idea, they like what we're doing, they like us as people, they like the team, and all was going smoothly. And then they started saying, okay, so what are your numbers? How many people, like, have you proved it? Have you done this? Have you done that? And it was at that point where we realised that actually we've got to go out there, and the big message that they gave us was proof of concept everything, wasn't it? Like, we went away and we did a lot of research into how we could go about proving concept, and like the two things that we did a lot of reading around was like the lean startup and the business model canvassing aspect of a business. Do you want to talk a little bit more about?
I was actually going to bring up the lean startup then, Chris, because at some points over the summer, it has been our Bible.
It literally
has been our Bible, because we really thought that by applying some of the theories that you can find in the lean startup, we would be a better business. Yeah. Partly because you'd read it previously to a recommendation, but our investors actually recommended us pretty much reading it cover to cover to be able to sort of take as much influence on as possible.
So for those of you who don't know what lean startup is, I'll just give a very brief overview. It's the idea that when you create a business model, and we did this on a business model canvas, which is an awesome tool that should be up on the screen right now, and you can have a look at us. The idea is that essentially all the things in your business model are assumptions, and in order, like, you don't want to work for 6 months on a load of assumptions which actually turn out to be false. Like,
without testing anything.
Because if it turns out that your business model is wrong, you could have spent those 6 months that you spent developing your product sipping margaritas on a beach in, Hawaii or somewhere like that, and have achieved exactly the same thing.
As far along as you were.
Yeah, and been as far along. So the idea is you go out there and you test your assumptions in any way possible, as fast as possible. And I remember us looking at our business model, and like the first assumption was that actually small businesses didn't have access to the skills they wanted, or they couldn't afford them. And it's obviously a very big assumption in our business model. Like, our whole model relies around this. So, like, how did we go about? Because that was the first thing we went out to prove. So, talk a little bit more about how we did it.
Yeah, well, what we did, Chris, was we set up a survey essentially to be able to. Well, our first objective was to speak to sort of 200-300 businesses in Bristol, so all local businesses. And so we decided to set up a survey, a questionnaire, or whatever you want to call it, in terms of market research. And we went out and spoke to 200-300 businesses, which turned out to be...
That was a long few weeks,
yeah, it turned out to be really successful. It turned out to be really successful because essentially, as is the case with any sort of market research program, we tried to disprove ourselves. We tried to prove that it wouldn't work. And what we kept finding is the fact that people wanted what we were doing, which was incredibly promising for us.
But the feedback alone was very motivating, wasn't it? Like, the number of businesses that said, if you had this product out here now,
we'd use it
we'd
today.
Put money down on the table. And that kind of really
in its own,
spurred us on.
That was more motivation than you'd ever need, that people would be willing to hand their money over there then and there, wasn't it?
Yeah. And so then we kind of went on, and it was right, okay, we know, like, we've talked to a lot of students, we've both worked in the Entrepreneurship Society, we kind of understand that need group, but we wanted to try and work out actually how much would it cost to get students using the how much would it cost to get students using the site, like to get students engaged. And so we started running a whole load of experiments, which included making very horribly designed. Okay, so before we go any further, both me and Will, we're very, I guess, anal about design, aren't we? Like, we love things which are functional, but functional, simple, and pretty. What's that quote that you're always throwing out about simplicity?
Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
Yeah. So
Leonardo da Vinci quote.
So the whole, this was something that, like, we're both very passionate about, is creating products which are really simple, easy to use, and understandable.
And we're perfectionists without having the ability to create perfection,
which is probably a downside.
Which is bad, isn't it?
But we took the lean startup approach anyway, and we mocked up a very rough site that had barely any text on it, barely had a few pictures, like the concept of what, of how Collaborate, it was called at the time, worked, and these, some example missions. And we found a free £50 Google AdWords voucher. And essentially each day we put £10 of AdWords on, and we changed a few of the selling points to see, and a few of the advertising techniques to see what it was that students were interested in. And it was crazy, like out of that £50, with this horribly designed site, and you can probably, we've probably shown you an image of that right now. Definitely go check it out, because it's quite embarrassing. But, we had around 30-40 students sign up. And it was really interesting, because the idea of a lean startup is you get a baseline figure, and then every time you develop your products, what you're trying to do is move that figure from where it is. So take, for example, 50p to get a student to sign up, and try and move it to our ideal for our business model. And so that's kind of like the approach that we've taken.
At the start of the UE Entrepreneurs Programme, we were called Collaborate. I still believe we're entered even at this stage as Collaborate, despite the fact we've actually changed
cross that off your form if that's what's
written. We've changed name. Yeah, but
But anyway, we settled on Missionly, and this idea of having students and young people as our secret agents, and businesses posting missions for them to complete with rewards. And the flavour fitted really nicely. And
it's a brand that we can build on in the future.
It has worked out really well in the fact that it really distinguishes us from job sites. Like, it's something that's interesting, it catches people's imagination.
Exactly right. So what did we learn from that? Did we learn anything from being able to call it Missionly? And the process of getting there?
I think we learnt to be very flexible, because actually, I mean, one of the big issues is we were both very hooked on the name Collaborate, and this is we're probably making this out to be a much bigger deal, but we really love that name, and like we wanted to be called Collaborate. And I think if we'd have been more flexible from the start, like we'd have made a lot more progress on the branding, and if we'd been out and we'd approached more people and asked them, and I think that was a big learning for us. Like, be flexible, don't get too set on one idea, especially when you're brainstorming, because it's the worst thing that can ever happen. And when you're getting frustrated but you can't have the name you want. So I think that's...
So over the course of the summer then, Chris, I mean, we touched on learning from Missionly, but what else would you say, maybe as an individual, maybe as a business, what would you say, first of all, what have you learned as an individual?
I think, I mean, as we said at the start, this is like the longest project I've ever worked on, and I've definitely learned, and this isn't really being cheesy, but having a really good team around you has made all the difference. I mean, there's been days where days where I haven't been motivated or you haven't been motivated, but because we're all in this together, and we've really built a good team dynamic and culture. And the fact that, having that support and having people around you who are just as passionate about what you're doing, and when you're having an off day, they support you, they get you back into it when you're there having an off day, vice versa. And I think that's been one of our strengths. And also working with people who have different skills. Like me and Will are very different. I study robotics, you study property management. And having those different skills and different opinions has been really beneficial for us, I'd say. How do you feel it's gone between us?
Certainly between us, it's been absolutely amazing. I mean, Chris and I have become very, very close over the course of the summer, as well as becoming really good friends.
It's got a little bit awkward now because people start discussing us as a married couple, and it's and I mean I think that's a compliment as much.
Yeah, well, when you enter into business, it's better to be close than not, I'd say. So that's been really good, and I'd say in terms of, I mean, I don't think anyone could ever fault our work ethic. Without trying to blow our own trumpet, we do work very, very hard at this, but as Chris mentioned, we're working towards a common goal, and we're working towards the future, which potentially can be pretty big for us.
Yeah.
But what we've really learned, what I'd say I've learned over the summer is certainly organisation, really being able to organise ourselves, really being able to plan our time, where maybe sometimes we've had our own pitfalls. I mean, at the start of the summer, I'm a completely different person to how I was then to how I am now, purely in terms of organisation, in terms of planning, and in terms of...
I think the phrase that we've both thrown around a lot is working smarter. This at the start, we were very enthusiastic. We went all guns blazing. We were trying to do everything, and yet we still weren't really achieving. And it's only when we've really taken a step back, looked at what we're trying to achieve, set smart goals, really understood how we can go about getting the results in the most efficient way possible. And I think that's really what has made the success that we've had over this summer, is that fact that we've been smart about how we've approached things, and we've really thought things through instead of just jumping in at the deep end like we did at the start. I mean, I guess we were a bit green behind the ears, and we've learned from that, which has been amazing, really. Yeah. We spent a lot of time kind of wireframing. We spent time looking at kind of user workflows, about how people were going to use the site, about how it was going to look, and we kept that idea again of simplicity all the way through. And it's now at the stage where people are using it. So I guess we should give a bit of an update as to what's actually happening now.
I mean, where are we now? In terms of where we got to at this present moment, as Chris said, we launched a couple of weeks ago, and we're really, really proud to say that we are officially making sales. We've got 6 jobs posted on there at the moment, which is really successful for where we are. I mean, it's humble beginnings, but we've got 6 jobs posted on there, which means we're officially making money, which is one of the better things. It's probably, in terms of the summer, it kind of puts the whole summer into perspective.
And considering off camera, I can see it's very interesting listening to you two. How, now you've got the jobs on there, how are you going to get students? How have you started that step to get the students?
So,
another highlight of our summer.
Yes, we've been working very closely with the businesses, kind of fixing jobs, but obviously we've been starting to approach students, and one of the ways is obviously freshers fairs. It's that time of year when all the students are coming back off holiday, and we really wanted to get out and speak to as many of them as possible, try and get as many different courses as possible. And so we tried to get a stand at the UE Freshers Fair, which turned out to, what was it cost?
£1,500.
£1,500 for a stand.
Not good, Yui.
Not good at all. And so we were a little bit cheeky, and we took the entrepreneurial approach, and we got 5 of us dressed up as secret agents, and we snuck into Freshers Fair, and we went out and we spoke to as many students as possible, and it was a great moment. I mean, we signed up around 500 students that day onto the site.
We got 500 emails,
which was amazing. Really great progress until
in 3/4 of a day.
Yeah.
Because
it got everything was going really well, didn't it? And it got to around 3:30, and
the staff at the UE Freshers Fair caught on that we hadn't paid our £1,500 to be there, and we got swiftly asked to leave the building. But although we had collected 500 email addresses, the day had been a great success.
Yeah.
So
actually, that's something that's really interesting me. Would you, if you could do that day again? I mean, from an entrepreneurial point of view, when I've learned things, you just got to go and do things. I think that day I saw in both of you how much you actually loved the company, and that's how much all that work through the summer actually meant to you. So
I mean, I think it was two sides. So obviously, if we could pay the money, if we could afford to, we would, because we want to work with the university, and we do apologise for any inconveniences we caused that day.
Sorry, you.
But at the same time, we wanted to get out there, and it was a great opportunity to speak to students. And so definitely, off camera, but on camera, do it. Just get out there, speak to people. You've got to do that.
It is one of
Otherwise,
those experiences you have to go through, and whether anyone likes it or not, when you start off, it feels like you just had to find any way to do it. But now you're there, you actually have a real company that's going. So.
Exactly right. Right.
So now, I mean,
well, that kind of sums up where we are now. Essentially, I mean, we've got nearly 500 students on our books. We've got jobs being posted. We're making money. But that kind of leads on to the future and where we're going from now, and what our plans are essentially.
So yeah, as Will said, short term, the big goal for us is, again, this whole idea of proof of concepting. We want to scale the business. We want to grow it to be a nationwide business, and we know it's got that capability.
Yeah.
And so we are currently working with Bristol Uni, UE, Bath and Bath Spa Uni, and proof of concepting it in Bristol and Bath area. And the goal is in 2 months' time, we're going to go back and speak to all the investors that we spoke to before and more, with a full working company that's been proved that it works on a small scale, and looking to scale it from there, which is really exciting. And we've already been exchanging emails with them, with the investors, and they're really looking forward to us coming back, I think.
Yeah.
The other steps are, obviously, we want to start engaging more students. So the big step now is product development, getting the website even better, getting more people using it, starting to work a lot more with the universities as well. I mean, we've got some really cool ideas about engaging lecturers, and we could talk for days on this, so probably not for tonight. But is there anything you want to kind of add to the short term of what we're trying to achieve?
Well, we set a couple of goals. We set a couple of goals, as you mentioned. Firstly, being able to prove the concept within Bristol and Bath. That's our first big thing, to be able to prove the concept so that we can know that it works nationwide, which we are pretty sure that it will be able to. But the big thing is, as we said, maybe around 6 months ago when we first spoke to our investors, is to become an investable company, and that is what will allow us to scale.
Yeah.
Alongside those couple of points is we want to continue building this business in the same vein that we have been building it over the past year. We've built it in a pretty ballsy manner, as the UE Freshers Fair represents. We've built it in a pretty cool manner, as the situation with Dennis and the situation with the team building and the situation with our approach to how we're going about the business. We want to continue creating not only a great product but a great business that helps people, because that's where essentially we didn't start this business. We didn't start as entrepreneurs seeking to make out loads of money from this business. We started this business to help students and help bridge that gap between students and small businesses. So we want to carry on doing that. We want to carry on helping, as opposed to becoming these incredibly tight businessmen that try and rake in as much money as possible. And that's our real goal. And that's our real goal, to make that socio-economic change across the UK.
But over summer, do you also think that it's been quite obvious that you actually need to make sales for a real business to exist as well? And that's something that I can see from both of you. When you actually started making those sales, you realise it could become a business that could help other people.
I mean, obviously, any business, whether it's a social business, a charity, or just a private business, has to be sustainable. Like, if you want to make change happen, it's got to be sustainable, because there's no point doing something for a short term and then losing all that progress that you've made. So the way that we've tried to develop the business has been in a way that, as we said before, adds value to both students and young businesses, does it in an affordable way, but at the same time is profitable, is going to allow the business to grow, it's going to allow us to make a better product, it's going to allow us to reach more people. And this is, it's been a key factor that we've kind of looked through all the way, is how we go about creating this business model which is sustainable and which is scalable. And that's what we mean when we say like an investor ready company, is creating something which has the opportunity to impact more people's lives. Would you agree with?
I couldn't agree more with that, Chris. That's everything that we're